Hi, everybody, and welcome to Zero Shot, the AI podcast without the hype. I'm James Gauci, the CEO of Cadent, and as always, I'm joined by Llew Jury. How's it going, Llew?
Yeah, well, thanks, James. Great to be here for episode 6. How good's this?
Episode 6, and you're the managing director of Advancer still, aren't you? That's a very important part of our introduction.
Yeah, I checked about an hour ago. I still am, so they still want me, which is really good. Still.
I'll talk to the boss and try and get a raise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's imperative, but I've got to do the right thing and choose the right cloud providers. So that's what we're talking about today, right, James?
That's 100% right, mate. Episode 6, we've got a massive session on the hyperscalers, the big boys of the tech game, the guys who own all the data centers and rent them to us. And we're going to try and discern some of the differences between them and try and unpack what each of their unique strategies are so that we can start to make better decisions as Australian businesses, Llew.
Yeah.
Any key takeaways that you were looking to get out of today's session?
I certainly am, mate, because this is a hot topic. We're moving on from data warehouses and data lakehouses, and everybody needs to know where and what they're going to build on their AI agents on, right? And everybody's moving very quickly towards that. So I'm keen to know who offers the best integration for autonomous agents. That's the hot topic for me at the moment. What about you, James? Probably about cloud sovereignty?
Yeah, look, data sovereignty is always one of my catch cries. And I also want to know that, we're a multi-cloud shop at Cadent. And so we always want to know which cloud is going to serve each customer the best, which tool set is going to serve a customer the best. It's got to be horses for courses in a lot of circumstances, especially when resources are tight. So hopefully we can come away with a little bit more of an informed view on which hyperscaler might be able to best solve particular problems.
Awesome. So yeah, let's get into it. So episode 6, this is going to be a massive one as well. And thanks to everybody that's been listening as well and subscribing across all the digital platforms, all the streaming platforms. James and I really appreciate it.
You were just telling me we went viral on TikTok. Maybe not viral, but like a little viral.
Viral, more than 500 views in 2 days is, semi-viral. So thank you everybody for checking it out. And thanks to Yenia, our wonderful producer as well. So let's get into it. Let's thank our key sponsors. So yeah, Prompt Cowboy is our sponsor of this episode, and they're the fastest way to turn everyday business tasks into automated workflows. They've got a really awesome version 2 coming out very soon, and so stay tuned for some great releases for them. So if you've ever wished you had a digital ranch hand doing the repetitive work with your prompting and your prompt engineering, Prompt Cowboy delivers. They wrangle hard, so head over to promptcowboy.ai and get your business writing smoother than ever.
Look, working with AI is a lot of times like herding cattle, I feel. I think this is an appropriate metaphor for some of the things that we try to do, Llew.
It is. On to tools of the week, talking about us now, tools of the week,
We're the tools of the week, are we?
There's another metaphor. So look, James, what's been your hot tool of the week you've been using that you'd love to share with the listeners and viewers?
Haven't had a chance to use it a lot yet because it's only just come out, but there's a brand new LLM called Mercury. And it's awesome. Made by a bunch of people who have previously worked on image generation models, and they're using a method called diffusion, which is used a lot it's used in all of the image and video generation models to generate language. So this is quite different. We're used to language models doing it word by word and based on probabilities and very complex matrices of statistics, all things that I know nothing about. And then with diffusion, it tries to generate the chunk of text as a whole and like plugs holes, and it works out about 3 times faster. So it's really interesting. It remains to be seen whether or not it's going to kind of beat the transformer models, which are currently killing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, diffusion models for language are here, and they look pretty good.
That's awesome. And I suppose it's about when it hits the mainstream. I mean, there's some business listeners who are just getting their heads around Nano Banana and, the different terms and opportunities that are coming out with
that phrase was not on my bingo sheet for the last 12 months, getting our heads around Nano Banana.
Yeah, Nano Bananas, of course, the Google tool with, VO doing the heavy lifting for the video, isn't it? So the tool of the week for me, James, is still Manny, and I thought I'd give everybody a bit of an update. Of course, Manny is Manus's agentic AI offering, and it's been surprisingly awesome. And I've been leaning in on Manny all week. I suppose if you want to compare Manny and Manus with OpenClaw, there's a lot of things happening with OpenClaw, and I saw an article the other day that I shared recently that the Meta's AI alignment director had her whole inbox wiped by OpenClaw and literally had to manually terminate the AI to stop the bot from continuing to erase data. So we've been looking at OpenClaw in Slack, but basically people have gone out there and run these sort of personal assistant type OpenClaws everywhere, not kind of understanding what the ramifications might be in this instance. So I read that article.
The PR team at Meta might have had a hand in that article as well, I reckon.
Well, Meta own Manus, which leads me nicely into maybe they're pushing Manny, which I've called mine Manny, when I've been really impressed. And I think leaning back in on the infrastructure and the tech, if you like, and the security and the auspices of what the Meta and the Manuses will bring is probably a safer bet if listeners want to try out an AI agent. Manny, actually, I instructed on Tuesday to go and book a car in for a service, and it went off to the Kmart Tire and Auto site randomly, and basically they started to fill out the form and said, what car have you got? I'm booking this in for you now on, in March sometime. I just did a mock-up. And what I was testing there was a large organization like Kmart, are they ready for an AI agent to happen and all these forms to happen? So yeah, that was quite an interesting one. Of course, I get my car serviced with one of my clients who are a wonderful client of mine, but basically just to look at this and now see that Manny is actually going to do things on your behalf after 1 week is awesome. So
and
stay tuned.
There's big takeaways there for businesses as well. You will have noticed if you're watching on video, I've got a different background today. I'm in Canberra at the Financial Brokers of Australia conference, and one of the things that they were talking about literally today was optimizing their digital presence for discoverability by AI. And you just outlined that exact kind of user journey, going from I've got a problem to having an AI agent and having that AI agent pick for you Kmart Tire and Auto. So this is kind of a burgeoning area for digital marketers to try and unpick and understand, and AI search engine optimization is certainly here and now rather than one step into the future.
There's a whole episode, James, on GEO. They call it GEO AEO, Generative Engine Optimization and Answer Engine Optimization. So we'll put a note down, Yenia. We'll get into that. But let's get into today's big breakdown, the big 3 breakdown, James. I suppose let's discuss Azure. We've got, of course, Microsoft Azure. They're leader by default. They have OpenAI as their how much do they own? 25% of OpenAI?
I can't remember at this point, but there's been so much water under the bridge with the OpenAI corporate structure that I think anybody would be hard-pressed.
Well, I know on the flip side, the other one, of course, is AWS and then Google, and AWS own about 19%, I think, of Anthropic and the Claude models. So everybody's been buying up. And then, of course, Google Cloud with Gemini. So frontier models, foundation models that basically, baked into the auspices of these clouds. So yeah, let's get into it. What, I suppose the first question, James, you do a lot of this and a lot of these setups. Why are we choosing Azure, just because we already pay, generally businesses pay for Office 365? Why Azure?
Yeah, well, I think Azure gets a lot of market share through that implicit trust that organizations already have in them. When you're a business or an organization that's relied on Microsoft tools and Microsoft 365 products for such a long time, it's an easy purchase. Like, nobody's going to get sacked for getting Copilot, because if Copilot goes wrong, then Microsoft goes wrong, and nobody's ever going to extract Microsoft out of that situation. So I think that they've played their hand quite well in that respect. The thing that like to take a step back a little bit from the front line and to go top down on what it looks like they're doing strategically. It looks like they're trying to be this fully integrated AI business where they're out there saying, we're building AI super factories. We're going to run models in these super factories, brand new data centers that are going to be interconnected so that everybody gets this amazing service by using Microsoft AI products. And that's quite different to the others, where they're quite happy to of course, they're investing in new data centers, but they're happy to retrofit their existing data centers to meet customer demand. But what that is going to mean is that over time, we might find that Microsoft might be able to offer better performance at a lower price, potentially. But again, that comes back to the quality of the models that they can access and the quality of the products that they create for their, I think we mentioned it in our last episode, whether the pain of going is greater than the pain of staying. So yeah, they're in an interesting position.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, my background is the entrepreneur in residence for many years with the startup community and of course as a VC, you see AWS splashed everywhere. AWS and the guys are awesome. They come up from Sydney. They hang out here in Brisbane, of course, and then give lots of credits. They do a lot of credits. They do all of those sort of things. And we'll talk about compute credits in a sec. But if you go back as a business and you're a small scaling business, generally your first stop is not Microsoft, is it? It's Google and Amazon or AWS with Bedrock. We've got this disparate sort of, two groups. We've got the established businesses that are sort of baked into Microsoft. So, their MSP, their service provider just goes, let's go on Azure. That's the safe bet. And then you've got the others coming through on AWS. But we're seeing a lot of flip ups and flip overs, aren't we? Because one might actually get too expensive and you haven't raised money as a startup. You don't have enough money to put into AWS and it's costing you a bomb. So, is Azure the next best one or what's happening? Like, are they making decisions on, the best models or latency or how they build their agents? Or is it pretty much cost and alignment to their clients?
Yeah, that's the horses for courses kind of thing that I was alluding to earlier as well. A startup might be absolutely comfortable running with AWS in ways that government in 2026 may not. But at the small business level, absolutely, it really comes down to the quality of the products, the quality of the model, quality of the user interface. Because if you can't, that's kind of table stakes in 2026. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, and then of course we haven't talked about Google, but with Vertex and what they're doing, there's a big push and they've got a lot of money and time and awesome people from the partner networks going out to the different levels that they go and talk to really get the power of Gemini leveraged, and having that native advantage baked into their infrastructure is super important, isn't it, to Google? And I think they're probably the silent winner out of all of this because, GCP and BigQuery and the power you can get from that. I've met a lot of CIOs, CTOs that are Microsoft people that actually go, oh, I actually love BigQuery with GCP and Google. And so, of course, you've got to count them in the big three, right?
Yeah, well, they just are. I mean, they're the fastest growing of the three big hyperscalers. They grew at a rate of about 50% last year off the back of a roaring AI trade. And I think they've been quite clever in that they're trying to vertically integrate, but they've got their priorities kind of inverted from the way that Microsoft has. Like, let's face it, Google was an AI business from day one. They were building algorithms. The algorithm was their business. And then they introduced AI machine learning to supercharge their ad platform, and the rest is history.
DeepMind, 2017.
The purchase of DeepMind, and so on and so on. I think the uniqueness that they bring is an AI native advantage. They understand the power and the value of these things. They have their own proprietary models, which are frontier models. That makes them different to Microsoft and AWS.
AWS, yeah.
And so when you're choosing Google, you're choosing an AI first hyperscaler. And that shows through in a lot of their other products like Anti-Gravity, which is their developer environment specifically for AI, with their agentic workflow builders and so on. It's quite advanced what they're doing in a cloud sense, and really kind of stitches together a few concepts in the form of services in ways that others haven't been able to yet.
Well, let's get into the sort of the golden cage, the cost of the golden cage, James, and that real thing about vendor lock-in. And, there's a number of layers to this. And obviously everybody goes straight for fees and costs and, the actual charges that just creep up. If you're a startup and a small business, generally you're on other platforms like DigitalOcean and, all these other sort of ones that sort of allow you to spin up for $30 a month, not, Azure instances and AWS. Talk me through your experience of, I suppose, the first thing is the performance that you're going to get out of those really basic type virtual machines and that cloud infrastructure that's out there, because there's still a lot of those providers sort of, in that tier 3 level, wanting to go after that market. And then, of course, the cost of attempting to move your data between cloud providers. And you've done a few of these migrations. We're doing one right now with a company from a smaller VM over to Azure. But you do a lot of these, James. What's the cost? Not just money, but also staff time and risk and data,
it helps to understand why you get stuck in these golden cages to begin with anyway.
Yeah.
Like when you first start out with a cloud provider, they will offer you, the products that are in their stable first, and often they're priced the cheapest because they're the most native to their ecosystem. So for AWS, it's things like RDS, which is for databases. For Azure, it's like everything because everything is Microsoft. I mean, Active Directory and Microsoft ID and Entra, it's called Entra now, is one of them. For Google,
still hard to use. Entra admin is still very hard to use, mind you.
Indeed, it is.
It's still a little bit like AD.
They changed the name, but they didn't change the user experience.
They gave it a web interface, right?
And for Google, it's like Firebase is the classic example where it had both of those things rolled in, a neat little database and a neat little auth platform. So those are native to each of those cloud services. So if you want to get off Firebase, for example, that is a non-trivial activity. That's a big project. You're handling a lot of sensitive data, and that's what makes a person sticky in any particular environment. It's when you've engineered or architected your software in such a way that it relies on the platform that it's sitting on. And the only way to get out from that is a hybrid approach, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, sure, it's financial cost, it's personnel cost, there's change fatigue. It may be that some of the features that you're used to are simply not available in a destination platform.
In the other one, yeah.
And that's disheartening for people because in technology, everything can be a little bit uncertain in technology projects. And sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. You get to the other side and you go, oh, actually, we're going to have to rethink this feature or this aspect of the system in order to make it work.
So there's a lot of risk aversion in the corporate world, isn't there? So people might not actually do that. They might not actually move over from one cloud provider to another.
Yep.
Will that affect their agentic AI? I mean, from what I see, you really need the right data lakehouse, you need unstructured data, you need to call in the right platform, the right APIs, the right systems, all of that sort of stuff, in order to then build what I call super agents. And super agents aren't just dabble agents that we've talked about many times on this podcast. Having a dabble with a Copilot agent or a gem or something like that. If you want to really build and rubber hit the road, you're going to need to have a partner, if you like, that can really build your cloud infrastructure and ecosystem so it's seamless. And a big thing we're finding is latency of the calls. So if you're spending a lot of time calling up APIs from all your different data sources and things like that, that's going to affect the time that your wonderful super agent does that retrieval from your prompt. And so you have to have the right cloud infrastructure from day one. It's so hard, but there's so many risks, isn't there, James? People go, well, it doesn't have those features, which is what you said. I'm not going to move. So where do the open weight models then kick in? Like, do people move from we've talked about this as well, like they move from an Azure or a Google or an AWS and they might go, oh, I'm going to go over on the Llamas and the Mistrals. Talk me through that and why you would do that if you're going to do it.
Yeah, look, these are strategic technology decisions. And for a lot of small and medium businesses, you may not even get to here. This is important to kind
Let's hope you do.
Let's hope you do.
Scaling ones, they get there. But
exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
But at the same time, it is worth bearing in mind that, and again, I'll reference the conference, like these were all small and medium businesses, these finance brokers, and they were talking about their hottest concern was data sovereignty, strangely enough.
There you go.
And so it's interesting to them for someone to say, okay, I would choose Claude because I know that I can get it in AWS and Azure, and there's two of the major hyperscalers, and then I can play them off against one another. Or conversely, go with an AWS where their big play is to be a utility. And one of the things that they're doing is building their own AI chips so that they can vertically integrate the utility layer of the infrastructure so that they can be competitive on price. So again, like all of the three hyperscalers have quite different strategies, even though they seem kind of the same ostensibly. So what you'll get out of AWS in the long term is you might be able to run an open weight model cheaper on their hardware than you can on any of the others. But that doesn't stop you being able to run it on any of the others as well. So many dimensions to consider, but and it's tempting to try and boil the ocean with your cloud choice. But from a personal perspective, this is the value of having a hybrid cloud setup, being able to be portable and having portability of your system so that you have confidence that you can pretty much move anywhere. Yeah.
And I think the final point to this about the golden cage is really around the free credits that big tech offer you. We've seen the 20K We've seen the 50K, the 100K type credits that you get kind of over 12 months addicted to, right? And they pay off that $2,000-$3,000 bill when you're really small of all your compute and the whole thing. And you see the lovely zero appear on the invoice that lands in your inbox.
Yeah, and it has this strange relationship with your relationship with VCs as well, whether or not you get those credits. And
well, look, I think supporting the ecosystem wherever you can is really important. But I think
totally
you're
agree.
right. But I think you're right. You've got to understand that that's when you go and actually raise VC money to pay for not only great people, but you actually pay for the cloud infrastructure. Yeah. I think that's a critical thing for anybody building AI and scaling AI is to make sure you got the great people, but also the great cloud infrastructure, and you make the right choice at the start, not just because of some shiny credits that come your way.
Couldn't agree more. Well, maybe we can move on a little bit into I know that you're using a lot of API-driven AI services, Llew, and I know that that's been working extremely well for your customers. Are we building on shifting sands, though, sometimes with these? Yeah. Like, do we feel as though that there might be a day where reliance on a particular API that has a particular format might bite us in the same way that it has with SaaS providers in the past?
Totally. So I think the days of APIs having a reckoning and the providers of these sort of legacy systems that customers have been using across all different industries is also having a reckoning, and they're starting to charge the 2, 3, 5K to actually connect to their API, which they're scrambling to build. And I think the thing that we need to do is, of course, in this sort of interim changeover from sort of the web services landscape into cloud, into the API market, into data lakehouses, is think about this is all a staged approach to actually ingest your data into the right cloud provider to make sure that you have a clear run and allow a clear run for your AI agents on your data set. And that's multiple data streams. So we're seeing clients and talking to clients, and the first thing we do is actually go to their software vendors to actually talk to them about what are the APIs that you've got. Have you booked in an API call to that software vendor? And what that allows us to do is then really quickly ingest the right structured data and make it unstructured in our data lakehouses. So we have an open freedom then to basically go away and build on top of that. I think that's the next step that's coming. I see a huge amount of impetus behind that. We use Beyond Data, and they're our provider for these because there's others like Snowflake and Databricks and others out there that basically I think are starting to really go down the food chain from enterprise into the SME space because I think it's such a massive opportunity basically to cut out the APIs. James, what about you, mate? What's your take on that?
Yeah, we had a customer a couple of years ago at this point, and this wasn't for AI, this was just for custom software, and they just wanted better intelligence, like better insights from their data, but they had 100, and I'm not even joking, 100 software as a service platforms.
Wow.
And they were relying on Zapier to kind of connect them all together.
I love it.
It works for the first couple of years, and then it starts to fray and fall apart, and then people leave and nobody knows how to maintain it, and the data looks weird.
Log into the Gmail account again that didn't work. And
exactly. Yeah. And what we were able to do with them was exactly what you just described. We built them a data warehouse. We spun up a Supabase database, and we plugged all the integrations in and replicated all the historical data. And then we were able to divest ourselves of those legacy platforms, which weren't working for the business anyway. And in some cases weren't even being used by the business at all.
And still costing them an absolute bomb,
and still
right?
costing them a bomb. We got their tech kind of line item on their, their cash flow down by about 60% per month. Wow. Just by adopting a data warehouse.
The CFO would
this
have
is
loved
pre-AI,
Yeah, the CFO would have loved you. They love the red pen on those sort of
exactly.
legacy SaaS systems.
But that also set them up then. This is kind of the value of good data governance, because you can say, all right, well, we're going to make a pragmatic data governance decision and bring all of that legacy data in and cut out old systems and just be efficient with our resources. But doing that in the right way then gives you the springboard into the realm of AI, where you can then adopt an agentic AI that can comb through all that data and give you unique insights that you never would have even considered. And that's it's nice that we're living in that world now. It's super fun.
Let's talk about the hybrid again, as we touched on with some of those Qwens and Kimmys and all those emerging models, and sort of that multi-cloud versus hybrid that's starting to really rise. And the whole private servers versus for sensitive data and everything like that. Anybody winning yet? Any winners starting to emerge from that?
I think it's worth just putting some definitional guardrails around things. So when we talk about hybrid cloud, we're talking about part of your cloud might be on-prem and part of your cloud might be in the cloud.
Yeah.
But it's common. It'll be a common set of operating systems or applications or what have you. So that's what makes it
digital
hybrid.
Twins? Like, are people sort of doing their digital twin, running it in different sort of settings?
I would probably class that closer to edge AI than hybrid cloud. But yeah, you could put a digital twin setup into a hybrid cloud setup. The next one is multi-cloud. So when you're multi-cloud, we might be a customer we are a customer of AWS and Azure and a GCP. And so we're a multi-cloud business, as no doubt you are, Lou. And so we use each cloud for different things. That's more common for service providers because we kind of have to be across all of it. But for particular businesses, it might be that they get certain things from certain providers, and it makes business sense for them to get them that way from those different clouds. But to talk about the open weight models and how this all factors in, a hybrid cloud setup gives you portability often in ways that other setups don't. So one of the big players in hybrid cloud is Red Hat. And Red Hat is owned by IBM. They produce Linux distributions, which are backed by their enterprise. So they provide support for the open source software that they provide. And they do have paid versions of those things, but they have free and open source versions as well. So you can take advantage of their system without having to pay them any money. They get other things out of that, but that's not really relevant for this conversation. The upshot is basically that if you're running Linux or you're like free open source operating systems, or if you're running something like Red Hat where you want that enterprise level support by virtue of a license, then you're able to deploy those workloads anywhere, theoretically. So I can deploy my Red Hat OpenShift AI cluster to any kind of hardware. It doesn't have to be in an AWS data center. It can be in the data center down the road. It could be next DC. It could be the server in my backyard.
What's the benefits of that? Like, is that good for latency? Is it good for privacy? Is it good for, when I talk about latency, I mean, if you're having them across too many cloud providers and you're calling different objects, or an agent's trying to work and there's latency with voice AI, is it that?
It's all of the above. Yeah, you're exactly right, Lou. And the privacy, it's about control, and it's about the agency that you have over your cloud environment. So if I have control of my cloud environment right down to the metal, so to speak, down to the chips and the motherboards and the RAM and the graphics cards, then I have that freedom of choice. But I also have the freedom to deeply architect my software to be exactly what I need it to be, nothing more, nothing less. And that can, in some ways and in some business scenarios, lead to lower total cost of ownership. That's not always the case, but sometimes it is. And that's why we're getting a lot of inquiries at the moment in our business about, all right, well, how can we spin up an open source AI cloud environment, but use our own server or have a setup that's portable between cloud service providers so that we don't get that golden cage of vendor lock-in.
Yeah, super important. So I suppose let's talk about what the minimum viable stack for the listeners would be out there. So a CEO or a small business, emerging business today, what would be the minimum viable stack? Would you recommend hybrid? Would you go cloud? How would you approach that sort of ask that you just mentioned?
I think everybody's going through a similar kind of maturity life cycle with AI. They're starting out with the conversational LLM, be it Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT within their business. And then the next question is, okay, well, how do I systematize that? And the recommendation that I make to the majority of smaller businesses is, if you just want your data onshore, let's just set you up with an AWS Bedrock API and you can consume whatever LLM you want whenever you want. And you know that it's all being run in Sydney. But the next step up from that is, okay, we've got specific workflows with specific needs. Maybe we can fine tune an open source LLM and run that on just a GPU instance in a data center. Maybe the cloud providers have some specific products for your specific vertical, like Google is big into the health space, for example. So yeah, there's a maturity curve there. But again, it comes back to use cases. I don't think there's one answer to rule them all, but certainly there are logical next steps depending on whether it's privacy you want to get a hold of, or whether it's medium to large scale efficiency you want to get a hold of, or whether it's control and autonomy that you want to get a hold of.
Yeah, super important. And the control with data sovereignty is so important as well, isn't it? And that regulation that you need to maybe adhere to as per the health comments and hosting in Sydney or hosting in Australia on servers here. So, wow, that's been a huge amount to unpack, and we could just keep talking for hours. And I know you know so much about this world, James, and we're really at Advancer getting into the whole data lakehouse plays, and it's becoming a major thematic of our offer as well, and helping SMEs embrace it as well, so they don't have to pay the larger snowflakes or Databricks that are pricing. And I think
it's the unique competitive advantage of business this decade is the data set that you hold and keeping a hold of it, because every time you upload that whatever template document into a large language model and it's a free version, everybody's theoretically got access to that now, and you haven't gotten anything back for it. Just makes a lot of sense, just at least to have like the 3-line AI policy for your business where it's like, data's not allowed to go into free LLMs. This is our process for picking AI stuff.
Don't
and
upload
this is why.
client confidential data. Don't upload
exactly.
staff information.
Yeah, exactly.
All of that. I saw Deloitte the other day. I think it was on the AFR, had an article about one of the, basically saying, do not upload to ChatGPT. And it was sort of a warning for everybody. But look, it's been an awesome episode. Like, what's your number one takeout from today, James? What would you say is your key?
I would really encourage everybody to think beyond the logical selection of your cloud. Like if you're a Microsoft shop, going with Microsoft, or if you're a Google shop, going with Google, because it really depends on your industry and it depends on the problem you want to solve. And especially don't just go with what your managed services provider tells you to go to, because they've literally got incentives depending on the brand affiliation if they're not a cloud agnostic business. So just be careful, keep an eye out. You might find some opportunities to get a great deal. Like, for example, if there's cloud credits being offered by AWS and they're the cloud provider for you, then go for broke. But if AWS is offering credits and it's actually going to cost you more to go with them than it is to get the credits and to not get the credits and go with somebody else, then you're missing a trick. So yeah, just be wary and informed as best you can, and to know your business before you try and understand the cloud.
Yeah, that's been my takeout too. My takeout is really from, if you're a business owner and you're looking to get into this area and really bring through your systems to be AI and data compliant for the future, my hot tip is to make sure that you don't just go with what someone who's building the bit of kit for you recommends, and you do some audit. You go and chat to advisors like myself from Advancer or James from Cadent, because we can steer in the right direction for the choices for the future, for an agentic world, an AI world. And so make sure you evaluate them thoroughly, and you just don't go with the one that gets offered up by whoever's building whatever they're building for you. So yeah, super cool. And it leads us to our next episode. Without naming anything too premature, we're actually going to talk about voice AI from front to back. James?
Sounds like a lot of fun. Voice AI is absolutely having a moment at the moment.
It is.
There's a lot of change happening. It's very hot. There are lots of new and existing platforms. There's lots of new open source stuff coming out. 11 Labs, Aircall, VAPI, but even the likes of QuenTTS and platforms that run it, open source solutions. So yeah, we've been using all of those, and maybe we can unpack that together.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's compare the ones off the shelf with the Qwens and all those of the world. But let's do the off the shelf with and the pros and cons. Let's get into that. Yeah, that's going to be really cool. So thank you very much for joining Zero Shot, the anti-hype AI podcast for business leaders, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yeah, and just to kind of recap on a message that we sent out to everybody last time, we're really interested in your feedback. We're really interested in your comments. Please send them on through. We've already had some great feedback from some people close to the podcast, and we're kicking around those ideas, see how we can improve things. But if there's stuff we're not covering that you want covered, let us know. If there's stuff that we are covering too much that's over your head, let us know. Because if we're not meeting you where you're at, then we're missing something. So yeah, we're really, really interested in feedback, and just give us a shout on all the socials. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. I think
TikTok.
we're on TikTok now. We mentioned earlier we're on TikTok now. So anywhere you find us, just give us a comment. We're reading all the comments, and we'd love to get involved with you guys.
And I also think we've got some amazing opportunities for speakers and amazing opportunities for sponsors. So if you'd like to sponsor Zero Shot, you're going to be onto a winner. And also if you'd like to be a speaker, jump onto zeroshot.com.au and Llewellyn will sort you out. James, do you want to give the final lasso to the amazing sponsors?
Yippee-ki-yay, ladies and gentlemen. A huge thank you to our partners at Prompt Cowboy. We love Prompt Cowboy because they help businesses harness AI without the guesswork. And that's whether you're building a smarter system or automating a process, or you just want AI that actually works. Prompt Cowboy, they've got you covered. Thanks to promptcowboy.ai for powering the show, and hop on your nearest horse and canter on over to their site and discover how much time you could be saving.
How good. So stay sharp, stay sovereign, and James, we'll see you at the next episode, mate. Looking forward to it. And thanks to Llewellyn for producing this podcast.
Here. Thanks, Lou. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.